Hello everybody, welcome back to Oulton Park for our final race of the day. It's the Porsche Club Championship that's heading out onto the circuit. We saw a race earlier on for the competitors in the Petro-Canada Lubricants Porsche Club Championship with Pirelli. They're back out again now for their second and final race of the day. So what's been a busy old day really for Porsche Club GB here as part of the supercar pageant event here at Oulton Park. Many of the club members descending upon Oulton Park in their road cars, all here to see the 911 Challenge and the Boxster Cup and this Petro-Canada Lubricants Porsche Club Championship with Pirelli race that's heading onto the track now. Now the grid for this race is based on the second fastest times that were posted in qualifying, so it's nothing to do with the finishing positions from earlier on today. It is their second fastest times from qualifying. And if you didn't join us for that earlier race today, first of all, where were you? And second of all, you'd have seen Chris Dyer, if you had have tuned in, go to the top step of the podium for the first time this year. Chris, who's finished runner-up in this championship in the past, claimed victory by just over a tenth of a second in the number 9 Straza prepared Porsche Cayman from Simon Clark in second place. But James Cayley was in third, and all three of those was separated by less than a second after 25 minutes of racing, or actually 26 minutes of racing and 14 laps, so it was all to play for as well. We also saw some good fights earlier on in Class 2 as well. James Coleman and Chris Astley having a good squabble for the lead of Class 2. That sort of split itself up a little bit midway through the race, but it all got back together again towards the end as well. So let's guide you through the grid for this one then, and the way that they line up. Based on second fastest times from qualifying, it's the reigning champion Simon Clark that sits there on pole position, and alongside is number 2, which is Peter Morris. Row 2 of the grid is Matt Kyle Henney and number 9 Chris Dyer, the race winner from earlier on today. The third row of the grid sees father and son line up. James and Bill Cayley line up there on row number 3, and row 4 of the grid, it's Kevin Harrison and Neil Delaghi that line up there on that row of the grid. On to row number 5, Richard Baiston has the Class 2 leading car, James Coleman for company, that's the fastest car in Class 2 that we've got on the grid. And on to row number 6, it's Andrew Muggeridge that lines up alongside race 1 retiree Angus Archer. Hopefully they've sorted his suspension issues. The 7th row of the grid, Chris Astley and Paul Simpson line up on row number 7, with row 8 being 91 Colin Tester, who had no clutch in the race earlier on. That was why he struggled a little bit, and perhaps was why he was out of position in qualifying, lying alongside 45, which is Paul Seagrave. The 9th row of the grid, Carl Hazelton, with plenty of support from his Porsche centre at Chester, based just down the road from Oulton Park, sees Andrew Porter line up alongside, and it'll be Julian Morris who is off the back of the grid. So that's the grid. We've given you a little bit of the stories as to what happened from earlier on, but just to recap, problems earlier on for Colin Tester were traced back to it being the clutch issue from him. That was why he was slow in race number 1. Simon Clark didn't really have a great start in race number 1. He starts from pole position in this one. He just messed up the start with what we were fed. And if you were watching earlier on, Matt Kyle Henney all of a sudden sort of had a problem as he was heading through the Britain's chicane, went onto the grass, came round into the pit lane, having gone really, really slowly. He thought something had broken at the rear of the car, but it all seemed fine. So it was a bit of a mystery, really, as to exactly what he felt. He wouldn't have gone off onto the grass and he wouldn't have slowed up and gone into the pit lane if he didn't fundamentally think something was wrong with the car. But they sorted it out and are more than happy that it was just one of those strange things that he felt and couldn't actually trace anything. So we'll have to wait and see as to what Matt Calhenny can do in this one. So red lights are on the gantry. We're about to get the race underway, and it's a good start from Pete Morris from the outside of the front row of the grid. Is he just going to get the nose of the 997 ahead of Simon Clark, or can Simon Clark fight back on the inside line? No, Pete Morris just does it. There's contact further back. Richard Baston, I think, is bumped into by James Coleman. They just bounce off each other. I think both of them largely got away with that one as well, as they started in 9th and 10th places on the grid. But it is Pete Morris that leads the way from Simon Clark as they head out of Cascades for the first time and start to build the speeds as they head down the lakeside. Both James Coleman and Richard Baiston, as a result of that little contact with each other, I think I called him Baston, Richard Baiston, both in the race and not showing any ill effects of that contact on the run in towards what was Old Hall Corner first time through. So everybody just treading gingerly in the early stages of this one. A bit of a lock up there though for Carl Hazelton in the Porsche Centre Chester backed car as he almost ran out of room heading round through Shellall's corner, but he was not picked off by Julian Morris, who still for the moment remains at the tail end of the field. Now, this is Richard Bayston trying to re-attack James Coleman. That's the Class 2 car of James Coleman coming under attack from the Class 1 car of Richard Bayston, who squeezes his way through there, so place gained by Richard Bayston, who finally manages to wiggle his way through and ahead of the early stage Class 2 leader, James Coleman, who was leading the Class 2 Championship coming into this weekend, will have further strengthened his lead in that as a result of the win in the class earlier on today, and in particular as his main Class 2 rival, Colin Tester, could only muster 7th in class with those clutch problems, so it was sort of a bit of damage limitation. Some running very wide, in fact 2 cars running very, very, very wide indeed, one of which was Neil Delaghi. Couldn't quite pick up on who the other car was, but Neil Delaghi's got a bit of contact there, is he? A tiny bit of tyre rub maybe on the front left-hand corner. So gathers at the moment, Neil Delaghi, and the 997 continues in the race, but that was a wild old ride over the grass there on the exit of Druids. So first lap completed. Pete Morris leading the way by just 0.4 of a second as they came over the start-finish line from Simon Clark. Both of these drivers having been champions in this category on more than one occasion. In the case of Pete Morris, several occasions. He might have finished runner-up in 2019, but he was still the Class 1 champion. He's won the overall championship several times over the years, but he's got the back-to-back 2020 and 2021 champion, Simon Clark, right with him. Chris Dyer, fresh from his race win earlier on today, sitting there in 3rd. Bill Cayley 4th. Further down through the order, Richard Bayston still doing battle with Kevin Harrison, who hasn't had a great first lap really, Kevin Harrison. Qualified 7th on second fastest times, but dropped to 9th at the end of the first lap, so just didn't hook it up. But the race leaders heading over Hilltop and in towards the braking area for Hislops on the second lap of the race. So it's the PMC Midlands 997 that leads the way. 996 second. The race-winning Cayman from earlier on today, sitting there in 3rd currently. Speeds begin to build again as they head up Clay Hill and in towards the daunting right-hander at Druids. And the good thing about these races, I always find as well, is that because you end up with some cars with more power, but they are therefore heavier, that they do drop off in a different way to some of the lighter cars. So the lighter Caymans, so the Cayman a lighter car but has less power, whereas the likes of the 3.6 and the 3.8 litre Carrera 2s, whether it be a 996 or a 997, heavier car but more power, and therefore you could argue there's a bit more drop-off on those because the tyres get worn in a very different way to the lighter Cayman. So it's always intriguing to see in these Porsche Club Championships how it all works out, but the technical team behind it always doing a really good job of making sure they equalise all of these cars, and just going to show absolutely it works. 997 leads, 996 second, Cayman 3rd. What's the gap between them all? Less than a second as they came over the start-finish line, and it was the car in 3rd place that popped in the fastest lap of the race that time through, with Chris Dyer doing a 1 minute 51.625, and that could be important because that of course picks up an extra championship point. And now Chris Dyer breaks as late as he can to try and draw himself alongside Simon Clark, but later on the way in doesn't always mean that you're quicker on the way out. So they still remain in the same order. The fastest lap of the race that we had in race number 1 was set by Simon Clark, a 151.2. Well, we're about 0.4 of a second off that, and I'm afraid off and into the gravel trap. We've lost one, and that's Andrew Muggeridge that's gone off. That's at Island Bend, Shallows Corner, where he's gone off. So he might have just lost the car through Island Bend and never quite got it back under his spell. And in the gravel trap there at Shallows Corner, it's well and truly into the gravel. Backwards in. The good thing is there's a solid tyre barrier there which soaks up the energy and lots of Recticel, and as you can see Andrew Muggeridge is out of the car and absolutely fine, but that will be covered as a bare minimum by localised yellow flags currently. Now we managed to achieve 14 laps out of the allocated 25 minutes earlier on. Pete Morris feeling the pinch though from Simon Clark, who is giving him a thing or two to think about this time on the run up towards Lodge Corner. Just trying to move the car around, anything to try and distract Pete Morris, but Pete Morris has been in this motor racing game for a long period of time, and now Simon Clark has maybe opened the door for Chris Dyer to wiggle his way through. The Cayman draws himself alongside the 996. Chris Dyer has the inside line for Old Hall, but he can't make it stick. Just lost out to the slightly more powerful 996 in the straight line. So the order remains the same, and keep looking in your mirrors as well, guys, because Bill Cayley is on his way in that number 80 green and gold car in third position. The Cayman is closing up. So out of Cascades along Lakeside, up towards Island Bend. There you can see the waved yellow flag on the approach in towards Shell Oil's corner to forewarn the drivers that there's no overtaking at that point of the track because of the position in which Andrew Muggeridge's car has come to rest. Matt Calhenny completes the top 6 at the moment. It's James Cayley, sorry, Matt Calhenny completes the top 5. James Cayley in 6th, Richard Basin in 7th, Kevin Harrison in 8th place. The Class 2 leader, which is James Coleman, is there in 9th at the moment. And Colin Tester, now that he's got a clutch, the number 91 car, is up to 10th position and he's running 2nd in Class 2 at the moment. Now Simon Clark attacking for the lead of the race, dives up the inside of Pete Morris and sneaks his way through. Did Pete Morris take the chicane or did he have to shortcut it? I think he might have had to have shortcut his way through that chicane there because, yeah, there wasn't room. So Pete Morris undone there by Simon Clark and then couldn't get his car turned into the corner. So for the lead of the race, he drops to 4th as a result of not being able to take the Hislop chicane. And we can head down that old tarmac. In theory, you should not gain an advantage. I don't think there's any question that Pete Morris gained 0 advantage as a result of having to cut that chicane because he was leading the race. He's now down to 4th, so he lost out to his teammate Chris Dyer, race 1 winner, and he also lost out to the Cayman of Bill Cayley. So the 2 Caymans going through, and now for Chris Dyer, he's in full attack mode because he is trying to hound Simon Clark for the lead of the race as they head up towards the braking area for Old Hall Corner. Through Old Hall they'll go. You can see all of the cars dancing around on the very edge of Adhesion. Matt Calhenny still sitting there in 5th place. James Cayley completing the top 6, but what can Simon Clark do to try and hang on to the lead of the race? He missed out by 0.162 of a second on the race win earlier on from Chris Dyer. Well, Chris Dyer, as things currently stand, is needing to stick his elbows out here because he's got the car of Bill Cayley, the number 80 Cayman, right behind him, and Bill Cayley is also getting caught up by Pete Morris, who's bringing with him Matt Calhenny and James Cayley as well. So it's not quite 6 for the lead of the race, but it might not be much longer before we see the top 6 absolutely rooted together. And of course, the closer they'll get, the more they'll squabble, the more they'll slow each other up, the better of the race will become, and it's already an absolute belter. So 11.5 minutes just under of the race to go. We are past the halfway point of this race. They have completed 4 laps already. And then as they start to thread their way uphill and in towards Druids, Simon Clark, for the first time in a while, has at least a little bit of daylight between himself and the car of Chris Dyer that sits behind. So not much, maybe an extra half a Porsche length than it was on the lap prior. But of course these cars, because they are in the same class but are very different, the Cayman compared to the 996, they do excel slightly differently in different parts of the track. So there's James Cayley at the tail end of that little 6-car train. For the lead of Class 2, we've still got James Coleman leading, but by a fairly comfortable 2.7 seconds now. So James Coleman at the wheel of the number 47 car leads Class 2, which is why we're concentrating on this great battle at the front, where the top 6 are still pretty much rooted together, albeit somebody's minus a bumper now. Now, Colin Tester there, that was 2nd in Class 2. Can't quite work out which bumper that's come from. Colin Tester's 2nd in Class 2, but I think he was coming under pressure there from, yeah, the 3rd place car in Class 2, and that would be the number 30 car of Chris Astley. So that would certainly be one to watch out for as well. But the leading 6 are heading in towards the braking area for Shell Oils. And the order still sees Simon Clark at the front, under pressure, but not able to pull away from those that are queuing up behind. Chris Dyer in 2nd, and then finally we do get a little bit of a gap back actually. Bill Cayley has dropped away a little bit in 3rd place at the wheel of the number 80 car. The first of the 2 green and gold cars. His is the Cayman, whereas James Cayley is the 997. James is at the tail end of this little train of cars just heading through now. So out of Knickerbrook, start to descend up Clay Hill, and in towards the shadows of the trees here at Oulton Park. Great parkland circuit. Further down through the order, Richard Baisden under attack from Kevin Harrison. And then the black and light blue car is going to be James Coleman, and that will be the car that leads Class 2 at the moment. So there go the cars of Baisden and Harrison, the two 996s, and that's the Class 2 leading car, James Coleman. He scooped up the win in Class 2 earlier on, but it's second and third in Class 2 where we do have that good battle, and that is Colin Tester, who was coming under attack from the car that was sitting behind him in Class 2. And I think those two cars are now just a little bit further back. There is Colin Tester, actually. Just saw his car there. He was second in Class 2 over the start-finish line last time through. Is he still going to be second this time through? Have to wait and see. No, he's not. Colin Tester has lost a couple of places on that lap. Quite why, I'm not sure, but he's now down to third in the class, and from 10th down to 12th, because he's been picked off by a Class 2 car, that being Chris Astley, and he's also been picked off by the recovering car of Neil Delaghe, who had his spin, of course, a few laps earlier. So James Coleman is safely at the wheel of that number 47 car, leading Class 2 at this stage. Ahead of him, we see this good fight still going on between Richard Baisden and Kevin Harrison. Whilst the Class 2 leader has the best seat in the house, watching it all unfold ahead of him. But back to the lead, Simon Clark. Last time through, the race leader, Simon Clark, popped in the fastest lap of the race that we've seen so far. 1 minute 50.885 from Simon Clark. So Chris Dyer set his best individual lap of the race, but he still lost 2/10 to the race leader, so the gap's up to 0.7 of a second. Bill Cayley cannot dispatch Pete Morris away from his rear bumper at the moment, so the green car, number 80 of Bill Cayley, still under attack from the multiple former champion, and then James Cayley is under attack from the car of Matt Calhenny, who locks the brakes and heads through the gravel trap at Druids Corner. Very uncharacteristic mistake there from Matt Calhenny, just seemed to lock the brake up and thankfully is able to wrestle the car back out of the gravel, but we saw something strange go on in race 1 from his car. Let's hope it's not a reoccurrence of whatever it was he felt in race number 1, but certainly Dusty Pirellis need cleaning off now, and I think for Matt Calhenny, he's going to lose out to Richard Baisden. Is he going to lose out to Kevin Harrison? Yes, he does, and I think he's going to lose out to James Coleman as well, so 3 places lost for Matt Calhenny. In fact, it's just 2, but James Coleman, I think, will sneak up the inside as they head in towards Old Hall. So, yeah, 3 places now lost for Matt Calhenny at the wheel of that Class 1 Porsche Cayman. First time he's raced that, though, this season. So that was a shame from him. Now we've got 6 minutes of the race still to go. We've got Richard Baisden now up into 6th position, but coming under attack from the Boost Energy car of Kevin Harrison. The 996 is absolutely bumper to bumper as they wiggle their way through Island Bend and in towards a braking area for Shell Oils. Class 2 leading car of James Coleman still with them as well. Remember, James won the Class 2 championship back in 2020. Finished 3rd in it in 2019, did James Coleman. We've also seen him out racing in the Boxster Cup in the past as well. Now Richard Baisden, good exit coming out of Britain's, might just keep Kevin Harrison at bay enough, but Kevin has a slightly better run, but he's going to run out of room, and I think, yeah, was well aware he wasn't going to be able to sneak his way through there. As for Simon Clark, he's the car missing the rear bumper, we can see that now. It's not slowing him up though, because he's just popped in the fastest lap of the race we've seen so far, 1 minute 50.665 from Simon Clark. So he was the best part of nearly a second up the road from Chris Dyer last time through, and despite the fact he's lost the rear bumper, he's still pushing hard and heads over the start-finish line now to go even quicker. 1 minute 50.548 from him that time through, so another, what, 0.2 of a second gained over Chris Dyer on that lap, so the gap is up to 1.2 seconds now. Bill Cayley's still there in 3rd place, and again he's just gone quicker than he's previously gone, and even in 4th place Pete Morris has just set his best individual lap of the race so far, so the top 4 cars all lapping quicker than they've done so far in the race on that lap, so they're all pushing each other hard. Now 8 laps have already been completed. Our race leader is on his 9th. And remember, for Simon Clark, he'll be looking to try and make it another victory. And that, I'm afraid, is Neil Delaghe who's pulled off. So that's the number 62 car that's out of the race. We saw a spin for him earlier on. And that is going to be it for him, unfortunately. Frustrating day, really, because he retired in race number 1 as well, did Neil? So not the best of visits to Oulton Park as far as he's concerned. So he'll be pleased to, no doubt, pack things away and go home and refocus his efforts for Silverstone and the Grand Prix circuit there on the 30th of July, when we next see the Porsche Club Championship out on circuit. Now, Richard Bayston is a busy old guy, isn't he? Every time he looks in his mirrors, there's that menacing sight of the number 16 car of Kevin Harrison right behind him. Kevin Harrison can't shake away the Class 2 leader, which is James Cole. They all fight over 6th, 7th and 8th overall in the race. But for James Cole, at the wheel of his Boxster, at the tail end of that little trio, he doesn't need to get involved, really, because their Class 1 car's ahead of him. And even the car behind him is a Class 1 car as well, because that's the number 1 car of Matt Carl-Henny that had the off and into the gravel briefly at Druids a few laps ago. So James Coleman could just afford to sort of sit with the cars ahead. Doesn't really need to bring the fight to them. So through Druids, they've gone past the yellow flag zone, which will be for the retirement for Neil Delaghi's car. Matt Carl-Henny, no obvious signs of any issues with his car following that gravelly moment. He's cleaned the Pirelli tyres up now, so he can press on ever more. Heading towards us there is the number 30 car. Now, that's the car that's running second in Class 2 at the moment. That's Chris Astley that's second in Class 2. He had a runners-up spot in Class 2 earlier on. Has Kevin Harrison been able to squeeze his way through to 6th place? Well, it's not for want of trying. Richard Bayston just gives him enough room. But from being side-by-side going in towards Old Hall Corner, they're back to being nose-to-tail on the way out. And that has brought James Coleman back into the mix at the wheel of the Class 2 leading Boxster as well. So, down through Cascades, along the straight at Lakeside, speeds begin to build again. Brake lights come on identically at the wheel of the two 996s. So dark are the brake lights on James Coleman's car, we didn't see them come on at all there, but I'm sure there was a little bit of feathering of the brake. But the three of them are still rooted together. Now we're into the final 2 minutes of this race, which means that Simon Clark will be on to his last lap of the race next time through. And we'll have to wait and see as to what might be able to happen. Now, Richard Bayston has been really busy in 6th place overall. Kevin Harrison is trying to attack again this time as they come in towards the braking area for the Hislop chicane, but Richard Bayston still sticking his elbows out, making sure that he hangs onto the position. Kevin Harrison there in 7th place. Then it's James Coleman that sits there in 8th position, but more importantly still continues to lead Class 2 and is still shadowing the cars that lie ahead of him. But our race leader is now on to the final lap of the race. Simon Clark on course to try and make it 2 out of 2 here, make it a win out of 2 here today when I get the words out, and having had to give second best by just a tenth of a second last time through to Chris Dyer. Simon Clark is on for a double win here. We saw him claim a double win. He made it 2 out of 2 at Snetterton. He's also claimed a win at Donington Park. So the only circuit that we visited so far this season that he hasn't claimed at least one win over the weekend was the weekend that he wasn't racing. That was Brands Hatch on the 30th of April when the Porsche Club Championship supported the GT World Challenge Europe. He missed that round, and in this 14 race season you count your best 12, so having non-scored in those 2 rounds, the key to it, as I mentioned earlier on, is consistency now for Simon Clark for the rest of the season. And I would say a second in the race earlier on today, and what is looking like a race win now is very good consistency for him. And Chris Dyer will be pleased with his efforts so far today as well, because we saw Chris Dyer claim his first win of the season earlier on. And there's not been a single race weekend yet where Chris Dyer has had a double podium, and it looks so he's on course for that, a win and a second as well. So that's a good haul of points for Chris Dyer, who has had a bit of a tough season really. Second race at Donington Park didn't go to plan. The second race at Brands Hatch didn't go to plan, so he's already sort of playing catch-up in terms of the championship scoring. Now, here comes James Coleman, the number 47 Boxster. He is on course for a double win in Class 2, which will further strengthen his championship aspirations. Former Class 2 champion, is he going to head towards another championship this year? We'll have to wait and see. Long way to go yet still, but he came into this weekend with an 9-point advantage and it looks so he's going to leave with an extended one. Simon Clark claims the win. Chris Dyer finishes in second place. Bill Cayley comes through in third, chased by Pete Morris, with James Cayley finishing in fifth place. And is Richard Baston going to be able to hang on to it, or has Kevin Harrison finally found the key to the door to squeeze his way into the top six? We'll have to wait and see. The charge to the line coming out of Lodge might decide it, but Richard Baston looks as though he has just about done enough to hold off the hard-charging Kevin Harrison. So Richard Baston, busy old race for him, finishes in sixth place. Kevin Harrison was seventh. James Coleman is eighth, and you can see he's delighted with that, flashing his lights, pumping his fist. It's a double win in Class 2 from him. Chris Astley comes through to finish second in Class 2, and third in Class 2 goes away with that car there, number 91, which is the dark blue car with a big white stripe down the centre of it, that being Colin Tester, who completes the top 10 and finishes third in Class. Andrew Porter will finish fourth in Class 2, 11th overall. Then it will be the next of the cars through is going to be Paul Seagrave, who will finish in 12th place, and I think 13th will go the way of Paul Simpson potentially. But for Simon Clark, he missed out by a tenth and a bit of a second on a race win earlier on, but he comes through to claim a race win in race number 2. And now for Simon Clark, that means that is 4 race wins for the season for him, so he will be pleased with that. More race wins than anybody else has mustered so far in Class 1 of the Porsche Club Championship for 2022. So you can see him just waving to the crowd, waving to the spectators, other than the telltale sign of the rear bumper having parted company following the fact that he ran just, I would imagine, a little bit wide coming out of Oulton Corner. It's been pretty much a perfect day for him, and a good haul of championship points for him as he will pack things away and head to Silverstone, where they'll race on the Grand Prix circuit in the latter part of this month, the 30th of July. Then they get the whole of August off before they head on the 17th of September to Brands Hatch on the Indy circuit this time, though. They were on the Grand Prix circuit earlier in the season. And the 29th of October will see their championship finale as they head to the East Midlands and Donington Park on the 29th of October. So we'll just await the confirmation of the results for this 8th round of the championship, and the Petro-Canada Lubricants Porsche Club Championship with Pirelli. Simon Clark claims the win with Chris Dyer in second place, and Bill Cayley was there in third place. Pete Morris was fourth, ahead of James Cayley and the busy old Richard Baston, who finished in sixth place, but chased to the line by Kevin Harrison in seventh, and also in eighth place the Class 2 winner, which was James Coleman. In ninth place, second in Class 2 was Chris Astley. Completing the Class 2 podium was a car that completed the top 10 as well, which was Colin Tester. Just outside of the top 10, it was the number 44 car of Andrew Porter that finished in 11th. Paul Seagrave was in 8th place. 9th place went the way of the number 88 car of Paul Simpson. It was Angus Archer who finished in 14th place. 15th was Carl Hazelton, and then in 16th place it was the number 10 car of Julian Morris, with Matt Calhenny having problems and dropping to 17th in the end. Retirements, I'm afraid, second today for Neil Delaghi, and also Andrew Mugridge had problems as well and did not see the checkered flag. So that's it from the Petro-Canada Lubricants Porsche Club Championship with Pirelli, and what has been a beautiful summer's day here in Cheshire. Thanks for joining us, and hopefully again we'll see you later on over the course of the season. Until next time, it's goodbye.